Hi, my name is Kenny Sabo. I'm the Director of Sport Performance at ADAPT here in Charlottesville. ADAPT stands for Athletic Development Performance Training. We work with athletes ages typically 8 to 18 here in the area. What we're going to do today is a general training session for athletes that can be done at home with no equipment. So we're going to get started. We're going to warm up. We're going to lay on our back. We're going to do glute bridges first. What I want us to do is have our knees bent at approximately 90 degrees. We're going to lift our toes up into the air. And we're going to push through our heels to lift up our hips. But when we do that, I want to keep our ribs tight and our abs tight when lifting and pushing through the floor. And when we do that, we're going to squeeze our glutes at the top, and then we're going to bring them back down. And we're going to do this for about 10 repetitions. If this is too easy, you can hug one knee and push through the floor, or we can maintain this with two legs or just lifting one leg in the air if hugging the knee is too tough. Whichever variation you choose, we want to squeeze glutes at the top and wake up our glutes. They're one of the most important, most powerful muscles that we have. After we do that, we're going to roll over onto our side. We're going to bridge up onto this knee, and we're going to lift this leg. And I want my toes to be pulled up towards me, and I want to take my heel up to the sky, not my toes up to the sky. I want to lead with my heel. If I lift with my toes, I'm going to feel more of my hip flexor, and we want to wake up glutes, so I'm going to lift with my heel, and I'm taking my leg backwards a little bit as well. After we get about 10 to 15 on that side, we can switch to the other side, and I'll go at this view so that you can see the angle that my leg is at. So I lift up onto my bottom knee, my right knee. I'm going to point my toes down at the floor, and I'm going to take my heel backwards at a slight angle while raising it up to the ceiling. We can do anywhere from 10 to 15 here, and we should feel our glutes. After we finish that exercise, we can hop up into a side plank. We'll do that for 20 seconds. I'm going to stack my feet on top of each other. Make sure this elbow is underneath my shoulder. This hand is on top of my hips. Both shoulders should be on top of each other and over top of the elbow. And I want to make sure my t-shirt is visible, pointed towards the nearest wall. And I want to maintain as straight a line as I can from the top of my head through my heels. After about 20 seconds, I can roll over to the other side, or I'll change here. So now we're on the other side. Again, shoulders stay stacked. I want to make sure my hip is in alignment with the rest of my body. I can squeeze through my quads to keep my legs locked out. And I'm showing my t-shirt proudly in front so that I'm not leaning here or leaning back. And I also want to make sure my hips aren't back here. They're forward. From here, I can roll to a middle plank on my elbows. When I'm in this plank, I want to make sure that my ribs are tucked down so that I'm not arching my back here. I want to tuck my ribs down, and then I also want to squeeze my glutes so that my pelvis is tucked and my core is in alignment. My hands are separated here at the bottom. I'm not grabbing onto them. And I'm squeezing my quads, squeezing glutes, and contracting and squeezing my abs when I exhale, and I'm looking down at the ground so my neck is neutral. From here, we can walk up to our hands, so we're in a push-up position. And then I want to do a downward facing dog in yoga, but I'm just going to push my head back, my hips up, push my heels down towards the floor, stretching out my shoulders. I can feel a stretch in my calf and hamstrings. I'm exhaling. Inhale as I come down. Drop my hips to the floor. I'm going to keep my toes on the floor here in the back, and I'm going to look up. I can move my shoulders around and exhale from here. And I'm going to do 2 more of those. Big exhale, come down, squeeze glutes, move shoulders, looking up, exhaling again. One more time. And I can move around, exhale, and it should get easier each rep. Then from there, I'm going to go to my hands and my knees. And I'm going to do cat camels. We want to make sure our back is healthy just like any other part of our body, so we want to move it. So I'm going to lift my back and drop my head. While I'm exhaling, I'm pushing through the floor, keeping my arms straight. Then I'm going to drop my chest and lift my head. Big inhale. Again, I'm exhaling here. Inhale here, one more time. Exhale through. From here, I'm going to lift my knees up 1 inch off of the ground, and I'm going to tap each shoulder. So again, all we've done so far is we're in a trunk preparation or part of our warm-up. We're going to warm up from the inside out, warm up our core and our trunk before we move into our movements. So from here, I'm just going to lift my knees up 1 inch. The further my feet are apart and the closer my hands are, the easier this is. And my goal is to not rock side to side. So from here, I'm warming up the anterior portion of my trunk. I'm warming up some rotator cuff. I'm stabilizing from side to side. If that's too easy, I can put my hands wider and my feet closer. But then as you can see there, I'm starting to go side to side. Our goal is to stay level. And we want to do any of these movements here for 10 to 15 repetitions or 20 to 30 seconds. Then once I finish that, I'm going to go to my knee. And what I'm going to do from here, we already got a little bit of calf mobility from the downward facing dog. Here we're going to work a little bit more ankle mobility. So when my knee is bent, I'm going to be mobilizing more of the soleus muscle, which is in more relation to our ankle, as I'm bringing my knee forward. Whereas if my leg is straight and I'm doing a calf stretch, I'm going to be stretching mostly this calf muscle. We're going to focus on these muscles down here. So from a knee, I'm going to put some weight into this knee, pushing it down and forward, and I'm going to go towards my big toe, trying to keep the heel down. If it lifts a little bit, that's okay. We should feel stretch right back in here. I can go towards my big toe, go towards my middle toe, and go towards my pinky toe. I want to do each of those locations about 5 times. Once I do that, I can switch to the other side. Push through my pinky toe, push through my middle toe, push through my big toe. Exhaling at the tough portion of the movement. And pushing that knee. So I'm trying to mobilize this ankle. A lot of times when athletes are squatting or going through various drills and movements, if we're limited in our ability to get low, most people think it's because our hips are tight. But a lot of times, if my ankle runs out of mobility here, it's tough to get lower without my knees coming more forward and using more ankle mobility. So if you're having trouble getting into a deep squat or getting low when doing different speed and agility drills, make sure to address your ankle mobility before assuming it's an issue at the hip. Once I finish that, I'm going to go back to the previous leg. I'm going to have a hand on each side, and I'm going to rock backwards and then turn towards my knee and exhale as I look up at my hand. If you want to make this stretch a little harder, some people call this running stretch or world's greatest stretch. If you want to make it a little harder, you straighten the back leg, squeeze your glute. I'm going to rock back, turn towards this knee. We can do 3 to 5 of these, then we'll switch sides. We're going to rock back, turn towards this knee. We can do that several times. From there, I'm standing up. And we have several options here. Now we want to move into some dynamic mobility. And one of the ways I like to do that is through a star excursion. So ankles are one of the most common injury in sports. And what you may see a lot of people doing after they injure an ankle is they're bouncing and they're reaching forward, side to side, backwards. I like to build that into a warm-up. So try to reduce the likelihood of injuring our ankle by doing some of these rehabilitation exercises before the fact, or prehabilitation exercises. So stand on your left leg. We're going to tap our heel forward, putting all the weight on my left leg. It's a light tap. Then I'm going to knee hug. Then I'm going to tap out to the side, knee hug, and then I'm going to tap back underneath, knee hug. So again, I'm forward. Now we can move to a cradle. Out to the side, cradle, cross underneath, cradle. One more time, going forward, big quad pull, side, big quad pull, underneath, big quad pull. Switching the other side, we'll tap forward, knee hug, tap to the side, knee hug, underneath, knee hug. Now we can have a slight knee bend here.
We don't want to turn it into a squat. We want to keep that foot on the ground through 3 points of contact. We want my big toe, pinky toe, and my heel in contact with the floor. And I'm exploring these end ranges while also trying to maintain balance, stability at that ankle joint. Once we get there, we'll widen our base. We'll go into lateral lunges. Initiate this movement with your hips going back. Just keeping one leg straight, it essentially turns into a single leg squat on the other movement. I want my shoulders to be level, toes forward, heels staying on the ground. Once we do that, one more I like to do is just reaching down and pulling those toes up. Pulling those toes up. Toes have joints as well, just like any other part of your body. We want to keep them healthy by moving them through their ranges of motion. After 3 to 5 on that side, if you're limited on space, you can just skip in place to get your heart rate up and to train your foot and ankle for movements and contact with the ground. But just for this video here today, I'll assume people have no equipment and limited space. Say you're at home in your living room, we can just start to skip here in place. The reason we like skips, because you can think of them almost as miniaturized jumps. We're training the ankle for repetitive contacts, so we can skip in place here. We can do all these exercises for approximately 15 to 20 seconds, or if you have space, you can move 10 to 15 yards. And if you're going forward, you can go backwards too. So if I have limited space, I can skip back and forth forwards, trying not to lose rhythm. After about 15 seconds there, I can skip and then move side to side. And what I'm doing here is I'm warming up, I'm getting my heart rate up, bringing blood flow through the body, but I'm also just ingraining movement patterns. We move side to side on the field all the time, and right here I'm using the inside edges of my feet to push side to side. After that, we want to be able to turn our hips and change direction. So I'm going to cross over, find my base, over, find my base. And we utilize this movement all the time when we change direction, going to touch a line. And again, I'm just ingraining common movement patterns in sport in a limited space, and I'm accumulating a lot of ground contact to simulate a practice or a competition from home. I can do the opposite of that and cross underneath. Again, just being able to open our hips and run somewhere, get to the ball, get to the other athlete. And from there, we can incorporate more height. As the movements progress, we want to include movements that have more difficulty and more power output. So from here we can skip in place. For height, good. From here, we should start to get a little bit out of breath, get our heart rate up. Now I like to incorporate our smaller intensity plyometrics, more so for balance and body awareness. So we're just going to have hands on hips. And if we're a beginner or we're a younger athlete, we can just hop in place. We can go one, find our balance. Once we have our balance, we jump again. And balanced is when we have one foot on the ground, but our hips and our shoulders can stay level. So we don't want to be here and jump. We want to find balance, jump again. Anywhere from 5 to 10 of these will be great. If you're a little bit more advanced, you can hop forward and back for 5 reps. You can go side to side and back. You can make a triangle. However you want to do it. Again, about 5 to 10 reps each leg. Find balance before moving on. Then from there, we want to incorporate our jumps. So there, I like to teach, especially if we have limited space, our proper mechanics for jumping. So first we'll start out up tall. Think almost like a med ball slam. I'm in my toes, and I'm just gonna slam that med ball and stop myself in an athletic position. Athletic position, we're looking feet approximately shoulder width. My knees are not in, they're not too far out, they're aligned into the rest of my body. My torso is up, and from here I can react and go anywhere. I can jump if I need to. That's why we call it athletic position or base position. So our goal is to be up top and stop in an athletic position as soon as we can. Not dropping too far, being able to stop ourselves at the right time in the proper position. So after about 5 to 10 of these, reset. Let's do 3 more. Up top. Drop. Now, if we take our arms out of it, it makes the movement a little bit more simple. So you can go right to adding arms, or you start up top here. We'll drop, jump, and stop again. So again, it's drop to athletic position, jump, stop again in athletic position, reset. So that's where you can start, or you can add the arms right into it. Drop, jump, stick the landing, reset, and we can do 5 more of those. And I'll make that the last one there. So we just jumped vertically through our fundamentals. Now what we can do is repeat the same process. We can drop, jump out forward, stick the landing, turn around, drop, jump forward, stick the landing. And the biggest difference here is when I drop, I want to get my knees and my weight forward when I take off into the jump. Again, there we can do anywhere 5 to 10 jumps. And if you're repeating this workout another time in the week, you can turn that into lateral jumps as well. So don't just limit your jump training to vertical. We also need to jump horizontally and laterally, which horizontal jumps transfer more to linear speed. And these lateral jumps can transfer to agility and change of direction mechanics. So after we go through those jumps, those are all 2-foot jumps from a stationary position, we can start to learn and incorporate jumping with a step, which there's a technique to. And these are great to work on at home. So what we're going to do, most of us have a dominant leg, but we're going to work both sides. First, I'm going to step with my right leg, so I'm going to have my right leg back. If I'm going to jump, I want to take a big step. This is referred to as a penultimate step. I want this first step to be really big, and what that does is it lowers my center of gravity. I'm going to back up here so you can see my foot. Take a really big step, and I'm slightly turning my foot to the right. What this penultimate step does is lowers my center of gravity, and then this last step punches into the ground. It's turned sideways to stop me from going forward, and what it does is now helps propel me vertically. Because if I were to jump straight, all my momentum's going forward, and I would carry forward instead of going up. So if my goal here is to get vertical, I want to take a big step to lower my center of gravity. Second step with a slight turn, it's called a block step, to block me from going forward. And then it's just the jump we worked on earlier. So go ahead and rep out. You can go 3 to 5 each side, step, jump, stick the landing, reset, left leg is back, slight turn to the left, block step is down to stop me from going towards the camera, and I can go vertically. So again, it's big step, stick your landing. Again, we can go left leg, big step, stick your landing. Try to be a little bit more under control than I was right there. So those are great to work on at home. One thing that requires a little bit more room is jumping off of one leg. So it's similar, but obviously we've taken one leg away. So my second to last step, still my penultimate step, has the same goal. I want to sink my center of gravity. It's a large step. It'll be a heel-toe roll. One of the few times we actually coach heel-toe to start to decelerate you from going forward. And I want to lower my center of gravity so I can go up. And then this last step comes through a little bit higher. Notice the difference in angle from this knee to this knee, and I drive my knee through to jump up. So it's big step, smaller step to take me vertical. If I work backwards, I can practice if I want to jump off my left leg, or excuse me, my right leg, put my right leg forward, drive the knee, touch back. I can practice here. Now what I do is practice from a heel toe. So now I heel toe lean into the same drill we just did. So I'm heel toe nice and low. I rise up, punch the floor. And that's a drill I like to do and implement for athletes at home. Heel toe roll, low to high, drive the knee. See, on the other side, my right leg's forward. I'm gonna have my knee at a lower position. This was my penultimate step. I roll heel toe, up high, driving through. So if I do the whole jump, instead of going from this heel toe lean, I can put that leg back, heel toe, rise, drive the knee. We can practice those anywhere from 3 to 5 on each leg. Next, what we can do is some old-fashioned track drills that were invented to be done indoors in really cold weather months, and they've been very popularized in PE and different programs. It's high knees and butt kicks. So when performing high knees, a couple of cues here. We want to get our knee at least to hip height. So that wherever my waistband's at, that's where I want to get my knee up to. And I want this shin to be at a slight back angle so my toes are underneath my knee here. And this shin will end up being pretty close to parallel with the rest of my body. And then when I touch the ground, I want to land on the balls of my feet, not on my heels, but not on my tippy toes as well. Because I don't want to point my toes down. I want to be able to land on the ground with my toes up like this and bounce out of the floor versus having to absorb the ground and then push my toes down again. So if my toes are down, then they have to come up and push back down. We want to build the strength at your ankle to come quickly off the ground. So we can perform high knees here for approximately 20 seconds. Incorporate your arm movement, opposite arm. Try not to lean back. Have a slight forward lean. And you can record yourself doing this from a side view to make sure you're working the appropriate angles. Trying to increase your speed, you can film 15 seconds worth, watch the video, count how many steps you got, and then next time you do it, whether it's immediately after or the next training session, you record another 10, 15 seconds, try to beat the amount of steps you got last time. And you can do that one time, you can do it 2, 3, 4 times. The next drill, or that many times in a session. You can do it multiple times in a session. Next drill will work is call them ham kicks. So instead of a butt kick, which a lot of us know, we come back here, what we're going to work on is coming underneath of our hamstring instead of back here. So when I'm sprinting, when I'm at high speeds, I want to be here, I'm going to touch the floor just in front of my hips, weight goes on my foot here, and then I want this leg to get underneath of my hips and step over this knee as if there was a pole or a rod coming out of this knee. I'm trying to step over top of my knee, I'm back here, and cycle through again. So we just did the high knees, which is the front portion of this movement. Now we're going to work the posterior portion, so it goes from here and it puts it all together. So it's same rules as the high knees. We don't want to lean too far back. We want to land to the same part of the foot, but we just want to come directly underneath of our hips or at our hamstrings. Same rules apply. You can record that several times in a session. Try to beat the amount of contacts that you got in the previous rep, or you can just do it at the end of a warm-up to start ingrained technique if you don't have any space to go run or you don't have a wall to do wall drills. And then when you get outside, you try to put the high knee and the butt kick together to practice some cycling through speed. What we're going to work on now is some strength variations that you can do at home. So what we'll utilize if athletes have little equipment or no equipment are called tempos. And what that means is we're going to go slowly on the way down movements, and we can pause at the bottom of movements to help increase the amount of muscular tension that we can create and the amount of muscle that we can recruit. Whereas weights usually do that, we'll recruit more muscle because we have an implement or a stimulus of weight. But if we don't have weight, we can create a similar effect and recruit more muscle by incorporating slower tempos. That being said, it's also great for your tendons and your coordination stability of learning these movements, creating good habits. It literally slows it down so you have an understanding of your body awareness and how these movements are performed. So, if you're home by yourself and you don't have a coach or a parent or a teammate to watch you, I like to go straight to a split squat movement instead of a squat. Because if you can't see yourself, there can be a lot of things going wrong, and we don't want to ingrain improper patterns. We can get a great effect by splitting the stance where we are generally weaker at. So if we don't have any weight, it's a great idea to split this stance so that it's tougher on you. And also it's a little bit easier to get the proper technique, so we're not as worried about ingraining improper patterns or creating compensation that could result in some sort of injury. So all we're going to do is we're going to get on a knee. I want this shin slightly forward. I don't want my knees past my toes, but I do want them close to over top of my toes so that we have a positive shin angle. This back knee can be right underneath my hips. And I'm looking forward. I got a nice tall, proud t-shirt. If you're wearing a t-shirt, show the logo off that's on the front of your shirt. From here, we can stand up tall, and we can drop for a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, and then we can hold for 1, 2. Stand back up, drop 1, 2, 3, and we can hold 1, 2. Stand back up, and we can drop for 1, 2, 3, and we can hold for 1, 2. We'll do that for anywhere from 10 to 20 reps, so we'll do about 7 more. Good, and we're working that tripod foot that I mentioned earlier. We want to be pushing through the front big toe, pinky toe, and heel. Good. Up. And try to make sure your heel in the back isn't turning out. If you have a little bit less big toe mobility, your heel may want to be turning out, which will affect your balance. Try to be conscious of that. Add some mobility if necessary. Try to keep that back heel towards the sky. Good, and from there we can switch sides. Start down at the bottom. It's easiest to start here so you can set up in the proper position. I'm going to go hands on my hips. I'm going to stand up, drop 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, stand up, drop again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And my back knee is floating over the ground. It's not pressed into the floor. 3, 1, 2. Good. We'll do 3 more. And last one. And stand up. Then for our next movement, I always like to pair a lower body dominant exercise, which that was, with an upper body exercise, and then with a trunk or core exercise. So next, we'll go into the push-up. And when doing this, if we know we have trouble with our push-ups, we can grab a chair or a bench or use the couch, whatever we need to do to elevate ourselves onto a higher surface. So push-ups from your knees is a possibility. However, when you do push-ups from the knees, it changes the angles of the push-up a little bit at the shoulder, and it's not as much of a duplicate to a push-up as we would like. So we like to simply elevate our upper body. All the same rules of the plank apply. You want to have your ribs down and abs tight so we're not arching our back, and we want to tuck our tailbone, squeeze our glutes, And then if these push-ups are still tough, if you widen your feet, it'll make it a little bit easier. From here, hands are underneath the shoulder. We want elbows to go not out to the side, and instead of straight back, just at an angle of about 45 degrees. And we can do the same tempo. We can go down for 3, hold for 2, about an inch off of the pad or the floor, and then we can press back up. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 2. We'll do 9 more. Another great tip if you're doing push-ups on the floor is to put your feet up against the wall. Just so I don't have to change the camera, I'm going to pretend this bench is a wall. And if I have my feet up against something and I set up in the proper position, it won't allow me to rock backwards. So I have to take, if my hands are directly under my shoulders, when I finish my push-up at the bottom, my hands will be directly under my shoulders. Whereas if I'm away from a wall, we may have a tendency to where if I start here to move backwards, and now my hands are up towards my face, which is putting our elbow and shoulder in a position that wasn't necessarily the goal. So those are our push-ups. If the elevated position is too easy, you progress by changing the elevation lower and lower, or if you're on the ground and you can't quite get to a full push-up, just put a pillow or a book, something underneath your chest, and use that as your aiming point, and then you progressively take that implement lower until you're to the floor. For our core exercise, with this, I will throw in something for our posterior core, and it's just the glute bridges that we did from the beginning. So again, glutes are extremely important, especially if we're sitting more than usual with our Zoom classes and the lack of activities available due to COVID. It's a great idea to make sure your glutes are staying active. And this is a great way to do it, so we'll just throw in these glute bridges with the same tempo. But instead of pausing at the bottom, we'll pause at the top. So we'll pause here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And we'll do 9 more. And one thing to keep in mind here, with any movement you're doing, with the exception of the one I'm currently doing right now, is you can add a backpack, or if you have a weight vest or some sort of weights at home, you can add weights to all these movements. The goal here is to simply provide some tips on these movements and how you can implement them at home if you don't have any equipment. So all those movements that we had just went over, the split squat, the push-up, the glute bridge, when grouped together are referred to as a block. So that was one block of training. Like I said, we like to pair a lower body movement with an upper body movement with a core movement, and you can add several blocks, 2, 3, 4 blocks to your training. From there, those are just 3 sort of fundamental exercises that are important to do at home, but especially in the climate we're in now, where we're inside more often due to weather and COVID restrictions. But one last thing I wanted to touch on is the importance of doing some sort of upper back or upper body training. When at home, it's very easy to just do a lot of pressing exercises because we have a capability to do that, because all you need is your body and a floor. And we don't do as much for the posterior side of our body or the back of our body. Coach told me a long time ago that the front is for show and the back is for go, and it may not be entirely true, but in a lot of ways it is. That we don't want to just work on these muscles in the front of our body from pushing. We want to work on the back side of our body, and I'll just show 3 quick exercises that we can do that at home. The first is just called eyes, Ys, and Ts. You lay on your stomach, you put your hands out in an eye. You can do holds for 15 to 30 seconds, or you can do repetitions, approximately 10. Then you go out to a Y. Thumbs are up. My head is looking down at the floor, but my face is off the floor. And then for a T, you can go thumbs up again, or even pinkies up to rep out. Again, you can do 10 of each of those. Another one, and again, from here, that looks like this. It looks like I's, Y's, and T's. And the next one we'll do is a Y press. You go from here, almost down in this W position, and you press up into an I. Why they're referred to as Y presses, I'm not too sure. That's how I know them, but we can call them WI presses. We're back here, hands and elbows are as high as I can get them. I reach out with straight arms, keeping my arms as high as I can, touching my thumbs, bring it back down. That would be one. Anywhere from 10 to 20 of those. And the last one will be Blackburns. From the back here, we're palms up, touching our thumbs. We're going to rotate out with straight arms and then touch our thumbs again at the top. So from here, touch my thumbs, keeping hands as high as I can, bringing them around, touching the thumbs, and finishing the rep behind my back. Again, those are just 3 movements you can do at home to help balance out all the pressing and push-ups that you may be doing, help keep our shoulders balanced and healthy in our different ranges and our pushes and our pulls. And that would be it for this presentation here today through this home training. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself at Kenny@trainatadapt.com. So that's the @ symbol and then the words trainatadapt.com, or you can visit our website, trainatadapt.com. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have or provide more tips for training at home. Thank you very much for listening and participating.